Hi, my name's Daniel. Welcome to the Almagier.net vlog. Today I'm going to be looking at Zhao Wenqing, the chairman of Birmingham Sports Holdings. Who is he? What does he do? And why should we care? In the last episode of the vlog, I talked about Blues CEO Ren Xuandong, and one of the things I touched upon was that he'd had responsibility for searching for the new manager of Blues taken from him by Zhao. So therefore it seems logical to talk about Zhao next. Who is he and what is his background? Born in 1966, Zhao is a generation older than the four other directors of Birmingham City Football Club. That, coupled with his role at Birmingham Sports Holdings, makes him senior director at the club. Now, unlike the other four directors of Birmingham City Football Club, Zhao is actually a British citizenship, well, according to filings at Companies House, and therefore can leave the UK freely and enter freely without any visa restrictions. Zhao is also chairman of Birmingham Sports Holdings, which makes him the most senior employee in the company. Now, if you remember back to the crazy summer of 2018 when Blues were under embargo and we lost the former senior management team, financial director Roger Lloyd, Chief Coordinating Officer Joe Alsop, Club Secretary Julia Shelton, Financial Controller Gary Moore. It was Zhao who tried to sort that out. It was Zhao who told the four of those and Ren Xuandong that they needed to come together in unity. Zhao isn't just involved in Blues. He's been involved in many other of the elusive Mr. King, also known as Wang Yao Hoi's business projects. Zhao is listed as director of the Blue Harbour Shopping Mall project in Beijing, of Asia Pacific Development Bank in Cambodia, in Phnom Penh, among many others. I think it's reasonable to conclude from the sort of stuff that Zhao does that he is Mr. King's right-hand man at Birmingham City. So the question is, what does Zhao actually do at Blues? Prior to this year, Zhao didn't work day-to-day in Birmingham. He was based in Beijing, China, where he looked after Mr. King's business projects there. The reason being is that Mr. King can't actually go back to China, so he needs someone he can trust to look after those projects. However, Zhao came back to the UK in December to sort out a few issues with accounts and credit card misuse, amongst other things, and then the whole coronavirus thing happened and he's been stuck here for 6 months. As of the recording of this video, Zhao remains in the UK. He was at the game between Birmingham City and Charlton Athletic last night, and him being here actually has an effect on how the board functions. To understand this, you need to understand a little bit about Chinese culture. Now, in Chinese culture, older people are venerated as being more wise, respected, capable, all that sort of thing. So that means in business, when you've got an older person and the younger people have to pay respect to the older person. And by pay respect, I mean, it's like if they're all at dinner and the older person drops a fork, one of the younger people will pick it up for him. You know, it's that kind of respect. This is very much echoed at Blues. When Zhao is around, people like Dong and Edward and Shane, they will all be doing whatever they can to appear as number one lackey. Now, with Zhao being around for so long, I think it would be reasonable to expect that people like Dong and Edward and Shane are probably quite exhausted now, having to wait on his every want and need and having to be absolutely spot on in what they do because they can't afford to be seen at fault or to have failed. The outcome of all this is that, Zhao's taken over the manager search from Dong because Dong, the last 5 weeks have been pretty poor. And it does appear that Dong has failed, which means Dong at the moment is not the blue-eyed boy. That doesn't mean that Dong's on his way out. As I discussed in the last video, that's a much more complex situation. But it could mean that right this second, Dong is probably a little bit more quiet and maybe not so obstreperous in what he does because he's in the doghouse. Now, I hear what you're thinking. If Zhao is this steadying influence on the board and he stops people like Dong from making horrific decisions, why doesn't he just do the job full time? You know, he sounds like he's quite a capable guy. So the chief problem with that is that Zhao's remit isn't just about Blues, and while the club is a part of the business, I get the impression it's only like a small part that Mr. King deals with. And it's useful for Zhao to be in the UK right now, but I get the impression that Mr. King actually needs him in China because he can't go there. What we have to hope is that Zhao will have relayed to Mr. King and to Paul Schwen the poor job that Dong has been doing with the club, and then maybe put that question into the owners' minds about replacing Dong. As I said in my last video, there are issues with the small circle of trust that Mr. King has, and I'll be honest, I think Paul Schwen has a small circle of trust too. But one wonders if there is a point where the errors of judgment made by Dong outweigh the trust issues. This is something I'm going to look at in my next video, actually. Now, back in December 2019, along with my really good friends, Matthew and Chris from We Are Birmingham, we wrote to Zhao to basically make sure he knew what was going on at the club, and with a kind of the hope they would fix it. And you know, we told him that Dong was useless and that there was issues, not just footballing issues, but issues in the way the club was being run. And I think it's fair to say that Zhao cannot be anything but fully aware of the situation now, which means that if Dong doesn't get pushed out, then things really are serious on that front. In the past, I've described the board as a Chinese soap opera, and it's kind of sad, but it's true, because it's not only there's a tiny circle of trust, they don't even trust each other. Now, I don't know if you saw the HBO miniseries Chernobyl. It was really good, by the way. If you haven't, I really recommend it. But there's a scene where, like, one of the scientists is complaining about the KGB watching him, and the senior guy that's come down from Moscow points out to the KGB, and then points out to the people watching the KGB. Eyes on eyes on eyes. And that's exactly what it is at Blues. And now, what that means is that while Zhao is reporting on the rest of the board to Mr. King, it is quite possible that Dong is reporting to Mr. King about Zhao. It's a mess, you know. And the big part of the problem that Blues have is this real lack of trust, not of the board and the owners of English people or of the fans, but of each other. In the next episode, I'm going to look at the elusive Mr. King, in the first of what I think will be a few videos about him. Just to catch up on, for those who aren't aware of him, who he is, what he does, where his money's come from, all that sort of thing. If you like this video, please click like, please subscribe, and click the little bell so you get notifications when I post a new video. Thank you for watching, and always, keep right on.